Right, so it would seem Labour are being petulant little crybabies, to put it frankly, following a defection and a lost by-election on Newham Borough Council last week. A council which up until 2018, incidentally, they held every single seat on. But they're not taking the losses of those 2 seats last week, both to the newly minted Newham Independent Group, with good grace, or even taking note of the reasons they perhaps lost the seat. And you might be thinking, Damo, you're covering a lot of the goings-on in Newham right now, but what you have to realise is that what is happening there, with Labour having insulted vast swathes of its Muslim vote particularly, Newham being a very multicultural, very diverse in the religious and ethnicities of the demographic the council there represent, they created division within their strongholds, and that is a picture that will be reflected elsewhere too. How Labour react to that, therefore, says much for their electoral chances at both local and national levels going forwards. Therefore, this most recent development ought to concern Labour voters greatly, and indeed Newham Borough Council voters, as to how cohesive the council will be in its work, and how the still dominant Labour group react to having a slightly bigger opposition now, reacting in fact to their official opposition on the council as the Newham Independent Group actually are now, because the statutory deputy mayor of Newham, no less, has, in what can only be described as an infantile move, just blocked the Newham Independent Group's official account on Twitter. Why should this matter nationally, though, Damo? How does this send a message to voters up and down the country? Well, watch on, and I'll tell you. Right, so the Newham Independent Group, with 3 councillors on Newham Borough Council, are now the official opposition, outnumbering, as they do, the 2 Green Party councillors there. And it seems there's some very bad blood amongst the remaining Labour councillors towards them, or at least amongst some of them. So before I get on to this key Labour figure blocking the Newham Independents, here's an example of that happened just last night. Yesterday, Newham Labour councillor Lewis Gordon Godfrey took to the site formerly known for its little blue bird and accused the Newham Independent Group of staging a protest by interrupting a 14-year-old boy playing the flute. This was an event being held at Queen's Market, and that said market were market traders, as you might have imagined. Unhappy market traders at that, though. Although 2 members of the Newham Independents were present at this event, they were not involved in any protest because the protest came from the market traders themselves. They aren't happy with Labour. They aren't happy with the Labour Council's decisions because the market is to undergo redevelopment they don't like. It's being mishandled, and they came out with placards. But if you were to take the word of Councillor Godfrey, this was all organised by those pesky former Labour councillors now calling themselves Newham Independents and members who are now their official opposition. Queen's Market faces demolition and regeneration, and it is widely being seen as an attempt to drive locals out. Instead of listening to that, the Labour councillor present decided to opportunistically attack the Newham Independents, who were just bystanders on this occasion. Godfrey knew this. There is footage of him taking pictures of it all. The interruption of the young flautist was simply traders standing, holding up messages about free parking and no development. He wasn't really interrupted as such. There was fallout afterwards, but again, it's between people unhappy at the Labour mayor's decisions and the officials present, nothing to do with the Newham Independents. But this, of course, followed on from the actions of the statutory deputy mayor of Newham, blocking the official Newham Independents page, thus stopping them from holding him to account on social media for what he might be doing there, what he might be saying there. As so many of us choose to hold our politicians to account, do we not? It isn't just MPs, it's local councillors too that take to Twitter and opine on what they're doing and get held to account for it if needs be, or indeed praised for it if they're doing good work. So many of us on social media do it all the time because it is a direct connection to our elected representatives. So to block before any real engagement can ever happen is a surefire sign they don't wish to be held to account, in which case, why enter politics at all? Well, I think we can all come up with answers to that one. But all elected representatives should want to be held accountable for their actions. We're all only human. Mistakes will happen. How you choose to respond to being held to account is the measure of how good a politician you can be, that you wish to be. But to cut that off from being publicly held to account shows this chap in question, James Asser, does not want to be scrutinised publicly at all, at least not by those who know everything he says and does with respect to representing the people of Newham. But you said this carries nationwide ramifications, Damo. We're still in Newham here, you might be thinking. But Councillor James Asser is probably better known, though better being a relative term in these things, for being on the Labour Party National Executive Committee, no less. Yes, this does go much further than Newham, because if this is how petulant Asser is locally, how might that be reflected nationally, when he has a seat at the highest table within the Labour Party itself? James Asser is on the Labour National Executive as the representative of all affiliated socialist societies. Now there's a contradiction, considering Keir Starmer regards socialism as a swear word and socialists as people to be purged. But then when you look at some of the affiliates, you can see they're using the word socialist as sheep's clothing hiding the wolf beneath. Such member societies include the Fabian Society or the Jewish Labour Movement, Labour Housing Group, Labour Business, Disability Labour, LGBT plus Labour and more. There are 20 groups currently affiliated, all told that they all share one representative on the NEC is, I think, pretty poor. That person is James Asser, who doesn't like being held to account, it seems, or doesn't wish to engage whatsoever with opposition parties on Newham Council. Well, just seems to be a bit of a petulant person that doesn't bode well for how these groups might actually be represented. Do you want an even bigger laugh, though, folks? Asser is the NEC chair of the Equalities Committee. Yes, you couldn't make it up. He's got a hell of a job trying to win back all of those Muslim votes that Labour has burned with its pro-Israel anti-ceasefire stance. The recent by-election in Newham that saw Sophia Naqvi elected, having taken over half the Labour vote in Plaistow North, was said to have been won in the mosques, not on the doorstep. So as deputy mayor and a portfolio holder in Newham itself, as well as being chair of the Equalities Committee nationally for the Labour Party, you're doing a bang-up job, James. Is that why you blocked the Newham Independents? Did they embarrass you a little bit? Is their win seen as a sign of your own failure here? Your cheeks burning a little bit over the affair. It does make you wonder. I want an insight into where Asser is at politically, though. A Labour list article certainly showed his allegiances. This was when he was appointed to his role as that chair of the Equalities Committee on the NEC. This is an excerpt of the article, and which reads, Asser, the representative of 22, now 20, affiliated organisations on the party's ruling body, is considered to be a strong backer of the new leadership under Keir Starmer. He is a councillor and cabinet member in Newham. He tweeted, very honoured to be elected chair of the Labour NEC Equalities Committee. Thanks to all my colleagues for their trust and support. We've lots to do, but I'm looking forward to the challenge. His election was welcomed by the Jewish Labour Movement's Peter Mason, as well as NEC members Luke Akehurst and Anne Black, who described the meeting of the new Equalities Committee as constructive. So he's a Starmerite. He's pally with Luke Akehurst and has his supporters amongst the right-wing Jewish Labour movement. In my opinion, no wonder the Newham Independents worry him. They'll keep on showing him up. So if he wants to cover his eyes and block his ears on social media because he knows, because he won't be a person to change things around for the Labour Party, given he clearly does not want to listen or learn from where Labour went wrong, blatantly shown in Newham just last week, then the Newham Independents have every reason to believe they'll continue to go from strength to strength, and nationally nothing looks set to change here either. So if you want change, it is pretty pointless backing Labour at this point, isn't it? Thanks for watching. I hope you found this video useful. Please like, share and subscribe if you did. More content out daily. Please do have your say on this story in the comments below and be part of the conversation. Meanwhile, here's a video recommendation where the scale of Sophia Naqvi's victory the other day really does underline how bad things are for Labour locally in Newham. How much will this be reflected nationally with polling failing to reflect this still? We will have to wait and see. But Starmer and co will be foolish to think there wasn't a consequence, and there won't be consequences still. And I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.